Okay, hello all. This clip ended up being more important than I thought it was going to be when I started doing it. And it relates to last night's proof for the hologram. Anyhow, again, here are the equinoxes and solstices. We have a vernal equinox coming up shortly on the 20th of March. Do not miss it. Learn about these things. We have 2 days on this planet when everything is in balance, and this is the first. The second will be September 22. Anyhow, the UFO that was finally identified in the hologram clip when I did the analysis yesterday, I have gone back to analyze that UFO, and I've kind of blown my own mind with what I've discovered. I spent all day editing and researching and getting the proof I need. Anyhow, if you didn't see the one I uploaded yesterday, proof for the moon hologram, this clip will be out of context. So if you haven't seen that other clip, you need to see it. Here comes the UFO at 20% speed on the left. And each time I increase by 5% speed, and I'm going to give you a few views of it here. Stare at the circle. This little area right here ended up playing a crucial role in allowing me to prove that this is actually the shadow of an object going across the moon. This is real time. Just stare at the Mar over there. That big C. Just put your eyes in the middle of it and you'll see it zoom by. It's 17 frames captured this shadow, and I run at 30 frames a second. So basically it was in frame for half a second. Alright, here we go. This is 20% speed, and there I'm tracking out the shadow. I'm going to come back to this in a minute, but I just showed you how I got the information. I'm letting this run out so you can see the hologram wave. Notice how the left side hits the top of the frame long before the right side. This is what we outlined in yesterday's clip with the axial tilt. Alright, now we're going to get back to the actual measurement. Okay, so before I explain the measuring I did of the object's shadow, I'm going to explain a few things. I did a lot of research, as I always do, and I wasn't even going to run this clip because, I put many hours into the clip I uploaded last night, and people are still coming in trying to say it's the camera, and I don't know whether they're just shills or they just don't think. I don't know which it is. But anyhow, I'm going to give this a try, and hopefully it's not going to cause more problems than it solves. If you look over here, this is Mar, I will say, I'll pronounce it Mar, which means sea, Imbrium. The UFO shadow goes this way. And here's a bigger view of it. You see this little point right here? It's promontory something or other. But the UFO comes this way. Now this is Mar Imbrium. And if we look over here, it says the outer ring of mountains rise roughly 7 kilometers above the surface of Mar Imbrium. So in other words, here's the ring of mountains where the UFO goes. This is very tall. Now I also looked up this promontory right here. It's 1.6 miles tall right here. But over here it tells us that this ring of mountains, I guess, averages 7 kilometers. Okay? So let's have a closer look. Here it is. The UFO comes this path, and it hits this promontory and then this edge of mountains. And I'll change the view here for you. No, that's not the best view. There's a better view. So the UFO comes this way, or the shadow of the UFO comes this way, and the shadow stacks up on these very tall mountains, whether it's the 1.6 for this promontory, or as we're told, this ring of mountains averaging 7 kilometers. I don't know which it is, but it doesn't really matter. It's super tall. All right. So now that we know this, and again, the UFO travels this path. Let's look at my measurement. So again, here's Mar Imbrium, this whole area right here. Here's the promontory, and there's the path of the shadow. Now, when I can start to measure the shadow, it's at this point. It actually comes in down here, but it's difficult to see. See how close these initial steps are together? As the curvature of the moon begins to increase, the steps get wider. So here's a wider space, here's a wider space, it's getting wider each time. A little bit wider, a little bit wider, a little bit wider. Now here's a close space. The reason for this is the shadow is stacking up on this either 1.6 mile or 7 kilometer mile high range of mountains. And then the biggest jump of all is when the shadow clears the mountains, and we get one last view of it right here after it makes this jump. So I'll go put this back into the main clip now, but I hope that kind of shows you where I'm coming from. Okay, so here's where it gets interesting. Let's find out how big the shadow of this UFO is. So what I did is I ran the video forward to the best view of the shadow, and you can see it circled here. Basically, the scope shop told me that a single pixel at the lunar plane with my setup averages 1.5 miles. One pixel in this picture averages 1.5 miles. So let's see if we can prove that out and get a size for this object. Here's the object zoomed in until you can see the pixels, and I just simply counted across 50 pixels. So it's roughly 50 pixels wide as measured in this way. Okay, so let's test what the scope shop told me. Here is the shadow circled, and this little, I think it's the Bay of Iridium or something like that, I forget the name of it. If I was to take this shadow and plunk it in there, you can see approximately it would fill about that much space. Okay, so just eyeball it. Here's the shadow, there's about how much space it would take up in there. Now let's jump over to Google Earth. Here is the same bay, and we're going to do a little measure. Here we go. We've got to miles right there, and we'll click, and we will drag it out to 75. Close enough for government work. So there it is. I mean, 75 miles, and you know, that's within the ballpark of what we are eyeballing if we take this dot and put it in this bay. It's close. It's not exact, but I think we can safely say that the scope shop has it exactly right. It's about 1.5 miles for a pixel. So let's move along. Okay, so let's just tie all this together in chronological order. So I'm filming the moon, and then this pulse wave hits, which is newly discovered. I did not see that pulse wave at first. Just about the same time that the pulse wave hits the left side of the moon, which is the side the UFO comes from, the wave starts at the bottom. You can see it there starting almost simultaneously. Then the scan line catches up. It was out of frame of the camera, and the UFO goes by. This occurs 4 seconds after the wave starts. The UFO shadow goes by. And then the second, what I'm calling a hologram wave, goes by. Okay, this is 20% speed, and here's the shadow going by slowed down. So now there's 5 frames. Because I've slowed the clip down, there's 5 frames in between each jump. What we're seeing here is between 1, 2, and 3 is equidistant. Then it starts getting bigger jumps from 4, 5, and 6 because of the curvature of the moon. The reason the space between 6 and 7 is less is because the shadow hits those tall mountains. Then the largest leap of all is at 8, and this proves, if I'm right, that the moon is there and that it's three-dimensionally there, just covered with a hologram. All right, then I measure in the way that I showed you the size of the UFO shadow. It's fixed about 50 pixels across, and if we multiply this out by the 1.5 miles that we are told each pixel is with my system as calculated by the scope shop, we find that this is about a 75-mile wide shadow. All right, so I'll give you my final thoughts. Okay, so as I close out here with my final thoughts, I need to say very clearly, I believe the moon is there. I just think it's covered with a hologram. If in fact this is a hologram, some kind of energy wave, I think it's probably a hologram. I think that the fact that it's physically there is somewhat proved with my analysis of the UFO's shadow. If I was incorrect and that was not a shadow, it would be hard to explain the measurements that I made. I'm assuming that I'm correct, and in that, it shows that there's a 3D surface there right before the hologram wave goes. You know, I've shot a lot of other objects and tons of times questioned why don't we see a shadow on the face of the moon when we shoot some of these things, and there's been a lot of them. Maybe there's a hologram there and maybe you can't cast a shadow on it. That's just an opinion and a guess. At any rate, my feeling at this point is that when I was filming and the wave started, 4 seconds later, that UFO, which I initially thought was a bird shadow, came into frame. Knowing that there's an energy pulse on the same side seconds before it arrives, I think it's quite possible that the UFO has something to do with the generation of that hologram wave. I suppose it could be up there monitoring, viewing, but I just kind of am leaning towards the UFO is directly involved with this organic energy wave. Having said this, I've come to the conclusion that it's a hologram for a lot of reasons. Other research I've done and the filming that we did for many months after we filmed this. This was shot in 2012, and for over a year we shot the moon and captured nothing, no interesting objects. And it wasn't until a couple months ago that I filmed that other little triangle thing, and then that slow-moving one that was just a few days ago. Those are the first 2 lunar objects we've shot since we filmed the lunar hologram. The issue here is that before we filmed the wave event, we would set up 3 nights in a row, or maybe I should rephrase that. We had not gone 3 nights in a row without catching something. You know, we put in a lot of hours. But at this point, I think the following. The moon is there. It's covered by a hologram. The UFO is massive, as evidenced by a 75-mile wide shadow. It has something to do with the generation of this wave, I think. And lastly, it's possible that it's something else. Maybe it's a force field. Maybe it's something I've never heard of. But these are my opinions now. Anyhow, there it is. This is a unique piece of film. I've never seen it again. I've seen it once. We filmed hundreds of hours, caught it. We've filmed hundreds of hours since, never seen it. A channel called Dark Sky Watcher claims to have seen this, but I have not seen video yet. Another user has contacted me saying they may know someone who has video of this. So the best I can do for now is say this is an important clip and stay tuned. Okay, welcome to the CRROW Discovery Project. This is an important clip on the lunar wave, and this time I'm going to take measures to make sure that people do not shout down those who want to have a meaningful conversation. This has been done a lot using the faulty equipment approach, and I'm going to prove that that's not even true and ask that these rules be followed. On this channel, I ask that 2 rules are followed. Number 1, be polite to everybody. Number 2, do not use bad language. For this clip, I'm asking for a 3rd rule. Do not comment about equipment being the cause of the lunar wave. You may continue to do that on any of the many other wave clips, though I will not respond. But on this clip, I will delete the comment and block the ability for future posts. This clip is for meaningful contributions aimed at trying to discover what this event means and to hopefully make contact with others who have filmed the event. Thank you. In short, I'm not going to have conversations ended by those who want to shout down the opinions and approaches of other people. So to refresh your memories, here is the lunar wave clip. I've used brightness and contrast only to make the clip, the wave as visible as I can. It's going to start right about here. At the bottom of the frame, the wave comes in, the camera pans above the wave, at which point the wave catches up to the camera, which proves that the camera or equipment has nothing to do with it. Now I'm going to run this again, and I'm going to slow it down to 50% so that you can get a very good look at this evidence, so that there is no reason for this evidence to be overlooked. Here it comes again, bottom of the frame. Wave starts, goes out of frame, second later catches up to the camera. Here it is at 50% speed, very slow. The wave comes in, the camera pans above the wave catches up to the camera. This is bulletproof evidence that equipment is not the issue here. Okay, so in this clip I've added a ton of noise, I've manipulated channels, and I've done some blending. Here comes the first wave. I've speeded it up to 200% to exaggerate the effect. Now the reason I'm doing this is because in a second here I'm going to mask the moon out. Now you're going to need to be able to see all the way to the edge of your frame. Here it comes. And look at that area. You will see no wave travel through that noise. There's better ways to do this, but the problem is it doesn't encode very well. So this is black and white, and it's going to encode the best I can do it. But basically, there is no wave past the moon. Okay, so I'm going to pile on a little bit more evidence here that demonstrates that equipment cannot play a role, even though we've already proved definitively that it's not the case. The blue line here is perfectly level to the frame, and that is level to the camera as well. The red line shows you the tilt of the wave, which again shows that the sensor is not level to that wave. Here you can see a bulge in the wave, and if this is truly at the moon, each pixel is about 1.5 miles with the old system that I was using at that point. Here you're just going to definitively see with your own eyes that there is an energy pulse in that red circle, and it's tough to see before I put the filters on, but if you have a good HD big screen, you'll see it. There is a lateral energy pulse going around the sphere of the moon within that circle as the wave starts at the bottom. Now here I'm going to break it down a little bit better. At the lower left, there's forward, there's backwards. Forwards, you can see it wrapping. Backwards and forwards again, and you can see the curve of that wave wrapping around the sphere of the moon. Okay, here it's slowed down and zoomed in, and again I'm going to run different filters, and the final view you get is unmistakable. You can see the pulses wrapping around the moon as the wave begins. There it is right there. You can see the definitive curve of the sphere being traveled by this wave. It's that simple. That's what your eyes can see. What it is, that's a whole other question. So here it is. I give you something that should not exist, the lunar wave in its entirety. And again, contrast and brightness have been used on this clip to bring up the visibility of the wave a bit, which is why the outside looks so black. And in closing, I want to give a special thanks to Zoe. I think this says it all, so I'll give you a moment to read this. Okay, and here is the image Zoe sent me. I can see you're all set up to do your research and look at some videos there. Very cool. That is a good looking shirt. I'm so impressed with how they printed it. Anyhow, cheers, Zoe, and thank you so much from both of us. And in closing, again, you guys, if you want to use the equipment argument, go to a different clip. I don't want to have to delete and block. That's not my style. But this clip is going to be for meaningful conversation designed at truly discovering and talking about what has been filmed here. Cheers. Okay, welcome to the CRROW Discovery Project, and this clip is a big deal to me. It contains the most important footage I've ever shot, and it ends an era of argument about whether the lunar wave is real. Here are 3 of the people who have shot the wave, and I should have put Gustav's name on that. I apologize. Here's Richard 205 Maria's footage. The wave's coming in from the top, and it will head down. There it is. Now there's a quick move of the camera here, and I'm not sure whether we're seeing him come back and catch the second wave. That looks like it might be a cut. In the editor I went frame by frame. I'm not sure. At any rate, there's definitely one wave. The second clip each time that I play them here, this is his slowdown on his original edit. Now what I'm going to do with his footage is fill the frame out to 1080. Here we go. The wave's going to come in from the top. You'll notice that the date 11/9 is coded to 9/11. I always look at dates. I'm going to run this. This is running at 50% speed, and I'm going to give you one more with filters added. And there's the wave again. It's a great shot because it is the first time we get to see a zoom up close on the moon of the wave, and there it is really slowed down. I always shoot wide because I want the whole moon in frame, but all this footage really adds something to what we know. Now what you need, look to the right there. See that noise coming into frame? He shot at a lower resolution, and when I ran these filters, right before the wave begins, we get that noise off to the right of the moon, and it occurs a couple of times as the wave is traveling. This footage is slowed way down, so you'll notice as the wave goes across. Okay, he edits out. Look at all that noise out there from the find edge filter that's going on, and there's those lines again right before the wave begins. It's very interesting, and it makes me wonder if I shot at a lower resolution and then stretched the frame and used these filters. There it is big time on the right there, and it occurs right before there's the wave, begins right after it happens, so that is very interesting to me. And I want to give a special thank you to Richard as he steered me to James Hannon and Fluke Skywatcher. I want to give a shout out. There's the noise on the right again, and this is his slowdown with an additional 50% slowdown from me, and here comes the wave. And you can see there's a bit of jagged noise even as the wave goes. This one cuts short right after the wave goes by. And that is indeed weird. Thank you so much, Richard, for all that you've done to help further what we know about the wave. This next footage is from James Hannon. It was shot on 6/15/13. The date numerology, interesting enough, is 666. There's the information to his channel, and I would say that his video is very reminiscent of Bill Bryson's work. You go to his channel, check out his work, and I will point out every single capture is either right before, right after an equinox, right before, right after a solstice. Now it's going to come in from the left top. There's the first wave moving very quickly and transparently. And I'm sorry, I guess I missed the second one. Here it comes with a little better view in from the left top. There's the first wave. And there's the second wave. Oh, I'm sorry, that was the first wave. There's the second wave. I'm looking at a small window here. I apologize. And we're going to take another close view of this with filters applied. Now this capture is reminiscent of a couple that I've shot that are very quick and clear. Here comes the first wave. There it goes, and here comes the second wave right behind it. All right, this next footage is from Defender of the Town. Fluke Skywatcher alerted me to this, and I thank you for that. The upload was done on 7/19/2013, and again, we're right after the summer solstice, so there may be something to this. He also has some fantastic footage of Saturn. Planets are not easy to shoot, and his footage is very crisp. I believe the last two you've seen, this and James, are shot on a 10-inch telescope. There's the first wave coming down from the top, and there's the second wave. What you should do is look out at the outer limb of the moon, and when you see it pass, look at the lower left corner, and you'll see the wave cross. So look at the outer right edge of the moon, and there's the wave. Now glance into the lower left, and you'll see the wave come through that corner. Here it comes now. All right, here's with filters. This was the hardest footage for me to try to enhance. If you look at the outer limb of the moon, you'll see when the wave is crossing. It's very difficult to see on the inner left side, no matter what filter I applied. Here it comes, and there it is going through the lower left corner. And again, we always see two waves, which is true, except in everything but this footage that Gustav, who was the first person to confirm the lunar wave, here we are 7/7/14, so we're, 30, less than 30 days after the summer solstice. And you'll see the wave go up the upper right limb of the moon, follow the arrows. Remember where this is. It's the only time I use an arrow to indicate. But here you see three waves. And then there's even a bit more than that. But the astounding thing about this footage is when I put the filters on it and zoom in later, you can really see it traveling across the face of the moon. You can see the curvature. And here we go again. And as you see the wave on the outer limb, well, maybe not on this footage. The best place to see this particular footage is out on the outer limb of the moon. And there's the third one coming up. So let me get the filters applied here, and then what you'll do is glance into the face of the moon, and you'll be able to see the wave traveling. Okay, look to the outer limb so you can identify where the wave is starting. There's one, and glance into the face of the moon. You may have to stop and rewind, but you can completely see the wave traveling across the whole face. I reviewed this footage for a good 4 or 5 days. I forget now, but it was quite a bit because it was the first conformational video I'd been handed, so I wanted to be darn sure that I was looking at. Now in this footage you can really see the waves traveling across the face of the moon. I've applied some filters and brightness and contrast. So this is the only example of three waves we have. There it is backwards. And then I'm going to run it forwards again. So thank you, Gustav. Please go to these channels and give these people some respect for adding what we know to this very crucial event. So here we go. Here's the CRROW777 footage. We're going to do them in the order they were filmed. And again, my footage falls before or after equinoxes. This is the Holy Grail footage. If I had not shot this particular footage, all footage would have been dismissible by those who want to argue against this being a real event. Just the camera pan and the way that it was shot allowed me to know that it was an actual event, and it allowed me to use a measuring stick against all other footage that I saw, where there was no doubt in my mind that we're looking at something that has gone unreported by NASA, which is not surprising. So here it comes at the bottom. The wave comes in, it goes out of frame, and then catches up to the camera, which has always meant this was never an equipment failure, not to mention that it's an organic wave and digital instruments don't fail that way. Just after the first wave begins, 4 seconds, there is a UFO shadow of some type that crosses the upper left limb. I wonder if that's some kind of a satellite device that is involved in this some way. Here's the second wave, filmed March 9th, 2014. On all my footage, I've been able to measure the angle of the wave, which I present you here. I don't know whether the other scopes were polar aligned or equatorially aligned, so I don't really have the ability to do that. And truthfully, they're also zoomed in, so it would be a bit difficult to understand the orientation of the moon, although I suppose we could look at a model for that night. Okay, here comes the wave. There's wave number 1. And there's the second wave. And this is one of the unusual filmings where the moon is not very near full on that. Here's wave, third wave, March 14, 2014. On a couple of these, and I've forgotten which they are, I would have to go through again, the waves look a bit different. They look a little more flat than every other filming that I've done, and that's on 2 of the clips. But you can determine that for yourself. And as you can see, after the 2012 filming, they became much more difficult to see, more clear, traveling more quickly. Okay, it's going to come in from the top, and I'll cue you right when it's going to start. I have a marker down on this one. Okay, and it's getting ready to come in from the top here. And there's the first wave. And you can see it bowing around the moon. Much clearer and quicker wave. Here's the fourth wave that I filmed on March 14, 2014. Now you'll notice the look of the moon changes a bit, and that is due to the way I am filming and how much light is on the moon, whether I'm using my city light filter. There's a few things. So some of them have kind of a more blue look, which indicates I'm using the city light filter because there's a need for that on that particular night. All right, I have a marker down on this one as well, and I'll indicate when the wave is going to come in from the top. And here it comes. There's the first wave from the upper left, and there's the second wave, and that is much quicker and much clearer than if you compare that to the previous waves or even the 2012 footage. Now this next one is kind of a special wave to me. It was very difficult to see. Four of us were looking at the monitor because we were filming the eclipse on this night, April 14, 2014. These waves occurred as the eclipse was beginning in earnest. I may do more work on the eclipses because I think they're manipulated. I have some evidence that shows this in past clips, but when I filmed the last solar eclipse, I really saw some things that got me thinking. And here it comes from the top. There's the first wave coming from the upper right. There it goes down off the bottom. Here comes the second one, passing the equator, down to the lower left. It's a very subtle wave, and as I indicated, there was an eclipse going on as this happened. All right, the 2012 footage, which we're going to go over here, is the most important footage I've ever shot, and just because of the way this footage was shot, it allowed me to understand, after I figured it out, that this is a filmed event. Look at the bottom, and I'm going to run with some filters first to show, the prominence of the wave over the face so that you can see the curvature. And then I'm going to break this out so that you can see the energy pulse that happens on the lower left limb of the moon just as the wave is about to begin. And bear in mind, 4 seconds after the first wave, an object goes up the upper left limb. So here we go down to the bottom left to see the pulse that occurs. There's backwards and forwards, and you can see the curvature of the pulse that happens, the energy pulse. Now as it goes up a little, you're going to see a sweep across the face of the moon. There it is backwards. It goes from left to right. You can see just kind of an energy sweep occur. All right, here we go again. And you can see the energy sweep. And then the wave starts up. And you can completely measure the bow of this going around the sphere. It's a measurable thing. And if you consider that each pixel has a value in distance, it's probably quite a bow. The problem is I don't know what the distance of the moon is, and I have a feeling it's much closer than we've been told. But saying that and proving that are two different things. The grid overlay matches the tilt of the wave from our point of view. Here's at 150% with the grid layover to indicate the angle from our point of view of the wave traveling over the lunar surface, if there is such a thing. Here we go at 100%. This is real time, real speed. There's a slight contrast manipulation here. So, I mean, we're in a new era here. Where are the space agencies? If I know this and all these other people have filmed it, this is a known thing, and that's all there is to it. This is something that's being hidden. You know, so many people have come and seen this since 2012, and they're from all walks of life, professionals. I've even been contacted by 4 people from observatories who have told me that they are directed at the observatories they are currently or have worked at in the past not to look at the moon unless they are directed to do so. Right here I'm showing that the wave goes out of frame, then catches up to the camera. This has always been proof that it's a filmed event. Even though I showed this, people have, badgered me nonstop and ignored this evidence. But it means what it means. There it is. There it is, catching up to the camera. That has always been bulletproof evidence that I knew and understood that this was a real event. And I stuck to my guns, and now we have confirmation on a level that's just not easily dismissible. All right, as we close out here, I want to give a special thanks to a good friend of mine in the Great White North who has supported the CRROW Discovery Project, and he has opened some new doors. I'll leave it at that. Thank you so much, sir, and I congratulate you on the new endeavors that you will be engaged in. So in closing, we have footage here that is not dismissible anymore. There is a wave event occurring on our moon. I have guessed that it may be a hologram. There have been many speculations on what it is, but the point is it's a confirmed event. Where is NASA? Where are any space agencies? Where are the observatories on this planet on this lunar wave? If I can have this much footage of an occurrence like this, there's no way that these people aren't aware of it. So they're hiding it. Once again, we find that they are not informing us about things that we deserve to know about. So, you know what? We don't need them. We'll do it on our own, and there it is, the lunar wave. I hope we can get some more answers this year on what this may be, but at least we know for a fact that there is a lunar wave event on our moon. So there it is. Cheers.